Hi everybody, thank you for watching. So today's video is going to be my 5 eyeshadow palettes that I recommend for beginners. I saw this video requested about a month ago. I'm writing down all your video requests and just working my way through them as quickly as I can. But I saw this one come in probably about last month that someone requested me to do this video. So that is exactly what I'm going to do today. I'm going to share 5 eyeshadow palettes that I think work for beginners and explain my reasons why. So before we get started, I do want to say thank you so much for clicking on this video. I am currently posting a video every single day, so if you enjoy getting daily content on makeup and beauty, I hope that you will consider hitting the subscribe button before you leave. But if you would like to see my 5 eyeshadow palette recommendations for beginners, why don't we go ahead and get started. So I decided to do this video. I know this video has been floating around for, you know, probably ever. The idea because a subscriber asked me to do it, so that's why I put it on my list. But how I decided to do my video was basically to take some of my first palettes that I bought when I was still very much a beginner. I truly still consider myself a makeup beginner, 100%. But these are the eyeshadow palettes that I bought for myself when I was either haven't even started my YouTube channel yet or I just started my YouTube channel, and the ones that worked the best for me because I had a pretty solid pile of eyeshadows and eyeshadow palettes from when I was more of a beginner, and then I picked out the 5 favorites that I would really recommend and that really worked for me. So that's how I decided to do this video. So the first one that I picked out is from WetNWild. This is their Silent Disco palette. So this is what this one looks like. So you have the 3 different shades in here. I remember I got mine from Walgreens. I want to say it's like $4 or $5, but their trios are super inexpensive. I know a lot of people recommend the WetNWild trios. I think Walking on Eggshells is one that is very popular as well. I never did get that one for myself, but I really liked Silent Disco. And the reason that I feel like I liked this little trio here so much was because it actually helped me understand how to create a smoky eye. You can see from the shades in here, you have like your darker colors here and then a lighter color. That's exactly how I learned how to do my smoky eyes. And if you can see, it's kind of like pressed into the eyeshadow, but this top one says brow bone, the second one says crease, and then the other one says eyelid. That one is like almost completely gone. I almost couldn't read that. And that was also really helpful to me as a beginner, and that is exactly what I did. I put this in the crease and kind of in my outer V. I put this one all over the lid. I would put this one in the brow bone and then also on the inner part of my eye to kind of help like lighten the look up so it wasn't too dark on me. But this is the palette that I used to try to help me create smoky eyes, and it's really what helped me, and it was super inexpensive. It was super affordable. The shadows are really good. That fly is back. Are you kidding me right now? Are you kidding me? I do not see that fly unless I'm filming. What? I also do think the shadows are really nice. I still reach for this palette. I have still used this palette recently. I loved that brow bone color so much. I thought it was so pretty. And this eyelid shade, oh, I'll just go ahead and do a swatch of that one, but I loved that shadow. I thought it was so pretty. But this is one of my first eyeshadow palettes. It's from WetNWild. It's affordable, it's easy to use, and I would definitely recommend Silent Treatment. One of my first eyeshadow palettes that I bought that was really based off of YouTube recommendations, and I remember I was so excited when I bought this palette and I felt like I was like in some sort of club or something. Like, not like clubbing, but like YouTube club. You know what I mean. It was from Morphe Brushes. I heard so many people recommending Morphe Brushes when I first started really watching YouTube, and I actually ordered from Morphe before I had a YouTube channel, which was kind of fun because I watched YouTube videos for a while before I decided to start making my own videos, and I purchased from Morphe Brushes, and this was my first eyeshadow palette that I purchased from them, and it was the 35T. Now really, there's a lot of different Morphe eyeshadow palettes that I could recommend to you. I really like the 350. Some of their newer palettes, the 35R, I highly recommend. If you can get your hands on the Jaclyn Hill palette, I would say do it. But this is the first eyeshadow palette that I personally bought from Morphe Brushes, and one of my first eyeshadow palettes in general. It worked out so well for me. I don't know if you can tell how beat up this palette is, but it is seriously beat up. There are so many different shades. Like, I'm trying to think, there has to be, even though there's 35 shades in here, there has to be a less amount of shades that I haven't tried versus how many I have tried, because I have gone through so many of these. So when I got this, you know, obviously I was a beginner, but I didn't have the makeup collection that I have now. So this was one that I just kept reaching for and kept reaching for. I thought the mattes in here were so beautiful, and they were very like workable for beginners as well. These kind of like light brown transition shades, these beautiful mauve shades that we have. Like, yes, you have like your deeper colors down here if you want to do something more dramatic, but then all of these beautiful shimmers. Like, it was just so easy to come into this palette and create an eye look. Also, the palette obviously has a theme. It's more of that taupe theme, and then it has these beautiful golds and these beautiful mauves. It was really easy for someone like me who I am not artistically creative. I can't look at a palette and just come up with all these bomb makeup looks. I'm super basic when it comes to my makeup looks because I just don't have that eye for art. I don't have that eye for creativity like makeup artists do. Like, I could never be a makeup artist because I just don't have that in me. But this was really easy to look at and still create really beautiful looks. I bought a lot of the Morphe eyeshadow palettes because I really do like them, but the 35T is what I started out with. So if you like that color scheme, like if those are your colors, I highly recommend this palette. It's $22.99 and you get 35 different eyeshadows, and I think that is a really good price. And as a beginner, this was one of my absolute favorite palettes. I have a non-traditional eyeshadow palette, but I can remember placing my first Makeup Geek order as a beginner and being so excited when my order came in. I can actually remember what I was doing the night that my Makeup Geek order came in. I was going to an iCubs baseball game and I was like, hold on, wait, I need to take my makeup off and I want to play with these eyeshadows because I was so excited about them. Like, isn't that random how you can remember things like that? But I started buying from Makeup Geek before I had my channel. This was totally a recommendation off Jaclyn Hill. I sat there and I watched her video about Makeup Geek and I wrote down all of her favorites. I think I started off buying 4 originally, and then I added a couple more, and then I actually, just a couple months ago, I got a package from Makeup Geek, which was like super overwhelming. So then I even added some more. Like these 2 on the bottom here, you can tell these are my newest ones because they look nice and everything else kind of like looks like it's been abused a bit. But the first shadows that I bought was this one right here, which is Peach Smoothie. This one is Crème Brulee. This one is Cocoa Bear, and this one is Shimma Shimma. Like, these 4 right here, as a beginner, this is what I used. And I used them hard. Peach Smoothie, Crème Brulee, Cocoa Bear, Shimma Shimma. Those are the 4 Makeup Geek eyeshadows that I would recommend to a beginner because those are what I use on my eyes all of the time. I would come in first with Peach Smoothie. I would either lay it as a base over my eyelid primer or I would put it into my crease. Then I would come in with Crème Brulee. That would go into my crease. Then I'd come in with Cocoa Bear and I would put that on the outer V of my eye, and then I would put Shimma Shimmer all over my eye, and sometimes I did brow bone inner corner highlight, but not too much when I was a beginner. And then I would mix Crème Brulee and Cocoa Bear for my lower lash line. Boom. That was my eye look. All of the time, like so often. That is what I was reaching for. So I really wanted to mention my Makeup Geek shadows because they were really special to me as a beginner. Like I said, I can vividly remember getting them. I can remember what I did that night. I can remember washing off my makeup so I could put these eyeshadows on because that's how excited I was over them. So right now the Makeup Geek eyeshadow pans are $6 a piece. I think their prices have started to go up, but they are really good eyeshadows, and you definitely hear a ton of people recommending Makeup Geek. There's so many, you know, my favorite Makeup Geek eyeshadow videos. So many people have huge Z palettes full of the Makeup Geek single shadows, and I do. I remember these as a beginner. I would totally recommend them, really enjoy them, and those 4 shades are definitely my favorite from Makeup Geek. So the last 2 palettes I have are more high-end palettes, but these are what I also bought as a beginner, and I would still recommend them even with a bit of a higher price tag. So the first one is going to be the Tartelette In Bloom palette from Tarte Cosmetics. So this is what the packaging looks like. I know I've mentioned this eyeshadow palette in a lot of past videos, but here is what the inside looks like. It does come with a mirror, and then it has all of these beautiful neutral shadows. To me as a beginner, that's what I really needed. It's still really hard for me to play with color, and like I said, because I'm not like super artistically creative, it's hard for me to do really colorful and, you know, crazy makeup looks. It's just not my personal makeup vibe, but it's not what I'm most comfortable with. So palettes like these really do help me out. I just find these shadows very easy to work with. A lot of these beautiful neutrals right here especially are so pretty. The shimmers are super easy to work with as well. I honestly don't come into this 3rd row a ton, sometimes for like lower lash work, but especially these first 3 rows, like all of those shades in there, I just think are so good and so pretty, so easy to work with, very pigmented, but without going overboard. I feel like they are super pigmented, yet you can still build it up, and I feel like that's what's kind of important as a beginner, because sometimes if something is too pigmented and you come in and you place it on your eye right away, if you're not super skilled at blending, or if you don't have great blending brushes, which as a beginner that was totally me, it's really hard to work with it if it's going to be that pigmented. So these, while they are nice and pigmented, they're not overly, and you can still build them up, which I do think is important as a beginner. And then these beautiful shimmer shades that we have in there, like that's kind of my go-to look: a crease color, an outer V corner, and then a shimmer on the inner part of my lid. So this was a palette that I reached for a lot. It does have a nice mirror, and I just really like all of these neutral shades in here. It is $46, but I would still recommend it if you want to splurge on a high-end palette as a beginner. One really good one to check out is the Tartelette In Bloom. And then my favorite high-end palette that I would recommend for beginners, and the final palette that I'm going to recommend is, of course, the Kat Von D Shade and Light Eye Palette. If you guys have been following my channel for a while, I think that you probably suspected that I was going to recommend this one. I recommend this eyeshadow palette over and over and over again. When my niece was getting into makeup and she asked me for recommendations, one of the first ones that I recommended to her was the Kat Von D Shade and Light Palette. This is something that I truly do recommend. This was one of my first higher end eyeshadow purchases. I actually purchased this one before the Tartelette In Bloom. This was the first one that I purchased. It was $48, so only $2 more than the Tarte one. And I was really intimidated, like really intimidated. I was nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, I just spent $48 on an eyeshadow palette. Like, the Wet n Wild one was $4. Like, what if I hate it? What do I do? What if I can't get it to work for me? And I love it. I find this so easy to work with. These shadows are definitely very pigmented. They're more pigmented than the Tarte one, so you just need a very light hand, but they are so easy to blend out. Kat Von D eyeshadows, at least in this palette, are some of the easiest shadows to blend. They just blend well. They blend well together without losing their color, without losing their pigmentation. They just all work so easily together. And as a beginner, it's really helpful to have a palette like this where it is separated into quads. That's exactly what I did when I first got this palette. I worked off of these 4 shades, and then I worked off of these 4 shades, and then I finally adventured into these 4 shades because we have that deeper gray and that black in there, and that took me a while to work my way up to. But this is like exactly what my eye looks are. You know, I put a color into the crease, and then I put a color into the outer V, and then I put this one on the inner part of my eye, and sometimes I even went crazy and put that one on the inner part of my eye, or as the brow bone highlight. That is how I worked out of this palette for a very long time. It has a nice mirror. I have traveled with this thing. I think I mentioned this in my used and abused, because this poor palette has like my fingernail marks in it everywhere because it's come everywhere with me. It's dirty, but it was one of my absolute favorites. This was such a good first palette for me, like first high-end palette for me. This one was such a win, and I was so happy about that because I can remember being nervous. And it's funny with this one too, I can remember getting it and we were actually going out of town to Chicago to a Chicago Cubs game, and I remember bringing this one with me, and I was so excited, and we were getting ready in the bathroom together, all the girls, and I was like, look, I got a new eyeshadow palette. Like, I was so excited about it. So it's funny the memories that can come with some of your makeup products, but I do recommend this one over and over. One of my absolute favorite palettes to this day. I still reach for it consistently, even though I have had it for 2 years, if not more now. So yes, highly recommend the Kat Von D Shade and Light palette for a beginner, or really just anyone in general. I love this palette. Okay, guys, that's gonna be everything for my 5 eyeshadow palettes that I would recommend for beginners. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video or found it helpful in some way. Of course, not only do I recommend these palettes for beginners, but I would recommend all of the palettes that I just mentioned to anybody, no matter where you are on your makeup journey, no matter where your skills are with your makeup. I would highly recommend all of these 5 products that I just mentioned. Everything that I did mention will be linked in the description box down below. I also love to know what you think is a good eyeshadow palette for beginners, or what was one of your first eyeshadow palettes. If you would want to share that with us, I think that would be super cool, and I do read and respond to all the comments, so I'm curious to know, you know, some of your first eyeshadow products, splurges maybe, if you want to share that with us in the comments. But that's gonna do it for this video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. I also hope that you will consider subscribing before you go, and I'll catch you guys real soon in my next one. Bye.